Denzel Washington. Just saying his name brings to mind greatness. An actor who's not only collected Oscars, Golden Globes, and endless critical praise, but who's shaped Hollywood with a presence so commanding that every role he takes feels unforgettable. To millions, he's the blueprint, the standard. But here's the twist. Even legends like Denzel have their own heroes. Behind the calm authority and powerful performances lies a man who still looks up to others, who still draws inspiration from peers, mentors, and rising stars. Because that's the truth about greatness. It doesn't exist in isolation. It's built on influence, on wisdom passed down, and on the sparks of admiration that push even the best to keep reaching higher. For Denzel, those sparks came from a handful of extraordinary people. Some were trailblazers who opened doors for him, some were friends who stood by his side for decades, and some were younger actors who reminded him of the hunger and passion he started with. And some of these names you'll expect, others will surprise you, from the icons who paved the way for him, to the friends who sharpened him, to the new generation he admires and even helped rise. This list reveals the 7 actors Denzel Washington holds in the highest regard. Stick around, because by the time we reach number 1, you'll see just how deep his admiration runs, and the emotional story behind it may leave you with chills. When Denzel Washington talks about the people who shaped his life and career, one name rises above the rest: Sidney Poitier. To Denzel, Sidney wasn't just a star, he was the blueprint. The man who proved that a black actor could not only break into Hollywood, but dominate it with elegance, strength, and class. Poitier was the first African-American man to win an Academy Award for Best Actor, a milestone that shifted the way Hollywood looked at black talent. But for Denzel, it went far beyond awards. Sidney Poitier was a mentor, a guide, and almost like a father figure. Denzel has often said that when he needed advice, when he needed perspective, whether it was about a role or about life, Sidney was always there, patient, wise, steady. And the respect between them wasn't one-sided. Poitier once said he saw Denzel as the one who would carry his torch forward, a successor to continue the legacy he started. And in many ways, that's exactly what happened. When Denzel won his second Oscar in 2002, it was the same night Sidney was honored with a Lifetime Achievement Award. Watching those two men share that stage, 2 generations of greatness, side by side, was like witnessing a passing of the crown. For Denzel, Sidney wasn't just an idol. He was proof that excellence could survive the weight of prejudice and still shine brighter than ever. That's why whenever Denzel speaks about who inspired him most, Sidney's name comes first. Always. But Sidney wasn't the only one who left an imprint on Denzel's journey, because after the blueprint came someone who redefined raw emotional power. A woman whose performances Denzel calls some of the greatest of all time. If Sidney Poitier was the blueprint, then Viola Davis is the fire that keeps the craft alive today. To Denzel, she isn't just another actor he respects. She's one of the most powerful performers he's ever shared the screen with. And coming from Denzel, that says everything. Their connection came to life in Fences, a film that demanded raw emotion, painful honesty, and the kind of acting that strips you down to the core. Watching Denzel and Viola together in that movie wasn't just a performance. It was a masterclass. The tension, the heartbreak, the love, the betrayal, it all felt real because both actors threw every ounce of themselves into it. Denzel later said that working with Viola was like watching magic unfold right in front of him, but their bond didn't start or end there. Long before Fences, Denzel directed Viola in Antwone Fisher in 2002, and they worked together again in The Great Debaters in 2007. Each time, Denzel came away more impressed with her ability to disappear into a role and deliver performances that felt almost spiritual in their depth. What makes Viola so unique in Denzel's eyes isn't just her talent, it's her authenticity. She doesn't act for attention or fame. She acts with purpose, with honesty, with a willingness to expose her deepest emotions in service of the story. And that's exactly what Denzel admires most, actors who treat the craft like truth-telling. He once said that Viola deserves every ounce of recognition she's received because she embodies what true acting should be. For him, she isn't just great, she's in a league of her own. But while Viola represents raw emotional power, the next name on Denzel's list represents something different. discipline, consistency, and a career built on substance over flash. When people talk about legendary actors, Morgan Freeman's name always finds its way into the conversation. For Denzel Washington, it's not just about the voice, the gravitas, or the unforgettable roles. It's about the way Morgan has carried himself across decades with discipline, dignity, and quiet strength. Denzel has been close friends with Freeman for nearly 3 decades, but the respect runs deeper than friendship. To him, Morgan is proof that substance always lasts longer than style. While Hollywood can often chase trends and spotlight flashy talent, Freeman has remained consistent. He's a man of few words, but when he steps on screen, he doesn't need to raise his voice or do too much. His presence alone commands attention. The two have crossed paths in projects, and every time Denzel has highlighted how much he respects Freeman's ability to ground a story. To him, Morgan represents the kind of excellence that black actors of their generation had to fight for. Roles that weren't boxed in or limited, but expansive, powerful, and universal. Denzel sees Freeman as part of the same lineage Sidney Poitier started, a continuation of that legacy of breaking barriers and showing the world that talent knows no boundaries. Solid, steady, reliable, Freeman is the kind of actor who doesn't just inspire through his roles, but through his longevity and resilience. And that's exactly why Denzel admires him. Because while fame comes and goes, Morgan Freeman has shown that greatness, when built on discipline, never fades. But not all of Denzel's inspirations come from his own generation. Some come from actors who are newer, hungrier, and proving themselves in today's Hollywood. And one name in particular caught Denzel's eye, someone he calls a once-in-a-generation talent. Denzel Washington isn't known for casually handing out compliments. When he praises someone, you know it's genuine, and that's what makes his admiration for Pedro Pascal so striking. On the set of The Equalizer 2, Denzel saw firsthand the kind of intensity Pedro brings. Their characters clashed on screen, but off-camera, Denzel couldn't help but notice Pascal's discipline and work ethic. According to Denzel, there's acting on a normal level, and then there's acting on a Pedro level. For someone with Denzel's legendary standards to say that, it tells you everything. What impressed Denzel wasn't just Pedro's performance, but how seriously he takes the craft. The preparation, the commitment, the way he carried himself on set, it all stood out. And when they reunited for Gladiator 2, Denzel doubled down on his respect, calling Pedro brilliant and a joy to work with. The admiration flows both ways. Pedro has admitted that being on set with Denzel left him starstruck. Imagine trying to keep your composure while acting alongside one of the greatest of all time. But instead of shrinking under the pressure, Pedro rose to it. And that's exactly what Denzel admires. Actors who don't just show talent, but who match it with relentless dedication. For Denzel, Pedro Pascal represents something rare in today's Hollywood. A newer star who isn't chasing quick fame, but one who's serious about the craft. It proves that even at his level, Denzel still finds inspiration in fresh voices that keep the art of acting alive. And that's why Pedro earned a spot on this list. But if Pedro is the reminder of fresh energy, the next actor on Denzel's list is the embodiment of consistency, friendship, and brotherhood. A man he's known for more than 40 years, someone who's as real off-screen as he is on it. Some friendships in Hollywood are for the cameras, others are built to last. For Denzel Washington and Samuel L. Jackson, it's the latter, a brotherhood that has stood strong for over 4 decades. Their story goes all the way back to the theater days, long before Hollywood knew their names. They met while working on stage productions, where Samuel's confidence and energy left a mark on Denzel. In fact, during one of those early shows, Denzel admitted that Samuel helped boost his belief in himself at a time when he was still finding his footing. That kind of support never leaves you, and it's why their bond runs so deep. Over the years, Denzel has praised Samuel not just for his talent, but for his authenticity. Jackson isn't afraid to bring edge, fire, and raw energy to his roles, and that's exactly what Denzel admires. Whether it's blockbuster hits or serious dramas, Samuel always makes his performances unforgettable. His versatility, moving from Quentin Tarantino's gritty worlds to Marvel's cinematic empire, shows just how far his influence reaches. And Denzel has never failed to point out how much he respects that range. But for Denzel, it's bigger than acting. He often describes Samuel as family, a friend, a father, and a genuine person who brings the same integrity off screen that he does on it. That authenticity is rare, and Denzel never takes it for granted. Together, they've grown from hungry young theater actors into two of the most recognized black actors on the planet, and that shared journey ties them in a way few others could understand. To Denzel, Samuel isn't just a colleague. He's a reminder that loyalty, trust, and consistency matter just as much as talent. And when you've walked alongside someone for over 40 years, the admiration only deepens with time. But while Samuel represents loyalty and fire, the next actor on Denzel's list shows a different side of admiration, a timeless respect for a partner who helped him make one of the boldest films of his career. Some collaborations in Hollywood come and go, but others leave a permanent mark on history. For Denzel Washington, one of the most profound partnerships of his career came with Tom Hanks. The year was 1993, and the two starred together in Philadelphia. The film was groundbreaking, daring to tackle subjects that Hollywood had barely touched at the time. Tom played a lawyer battling AIDS, while Denzel played the attorney who, at first, doesn't want the case but eventually becomes his defender. It was a story about prejudice, compassion, and humanity, and the chemistry between the two actors made it unforgettable. For Denzel, Tom Hanks wasn't just another co-star. He was someone who brought heart and honesty into every scene, making the story feel painfully real. In interviews, Denzel has praised Tom's ability to stay authentic, to carry emotion without ever forcing it. And when you consider Denzel's incredibly high standards, that kind of admiration speaks volumes. The respect wasn't one-sided either. Years later, in 2016, when Denzel was honored with the Cecil B. DeMille Award at the Golden Globes, it was Tom Hanks who stood on stage to pay tribute. And it wasn't a scripted Hollywood speech. It was heartfelt, raw, and genuine. You could tell these weren't just two actors respecting each other's craft, but two men who had built a bond of trust and admiration. Even though they haven't worked together again on a film since Philadelphia, their connection hasn't faded. Whenever you see them share a stage, it's all genuine smiles and brotherly warmth, as if no time has passed at all. For Denzel, Tom Hanks represents more than just talent. He's proof that kindness and character can exist alongside greatness. And in an industry that often prioritizes ego, that's something Denzel deeply values. But while Tom represents the perfect partner, the final name on Denzel's list carries a weight unlike any other, a young man he quietly supported long before the world even knew his name. If there's one name on this list that shows just how much Denzel Washington values legacy, it's Chadwick Boseman. To Denzel, Chadwick wasn't just a brilliant actor, he was a symbol of everything the next generation could become. And what makes their story even more powerful is that Denzel played a role in Chadwick's rise long before the world even knew who he was. Years before Black Panther made him a household name, Chadwick was a young student accepted into an acting program at Oxford. The problem? He couldn't afford to go. What he didn't know at the time was that Denzel had quietly donated money to cover tuition for several students, and Chadwick was one of them. Denzel never bragged about it, never asked for recognition. To him, it was simply about giving back and lifting others the way Sidney Poitier once lifted him. Fast forward years later, Chadwick, now standing on stage at a star-studded event, revealed that story to the world. Looking directly at Denzel, he said, "There is no Black Panther without Denzel Washington." In that moment, you could see the emotion on Denzel's face. This wasn't just an actor thanking another actor. It was a student honoring his mentor, a successor acknowledging the man who believed in him before the fame. For Denzel, Chadwick represented everything he admires: grace, dignity, and purpose. He once described Chadwick as an old soul, someone who wasn't chasing fame, but using his platform to tell stories that mattered. Jackie Robinson, Thurgood Marshall, T'Challa. Each role carried weight, and Chadwick wore it like a crown. When the world lost Chadwick in 2020, Denzel didn't just see it as Hollywood losing a star, he saw it as a personal loss, the passing of someone who carried the torch with honor. His words about Chadwick after his death made it clear this wasn't just admiration, it was pride. Pride in seeing the next generation do it right. For Denzel, Chadwick Boseman wasn't just a favorite actor, he was a legacy in motion. Someone who proved that excellence doesn't end with one generation. It continues, evolves, and inspires those who come after. But Chadwick's story doesn't just end this list. It ties it all together, because if Sidney Poitier was the blueprint, Viola Davis the fire, Freeman the rock, Pascal the fresh energy, Samuel the brother, and Tom the partner, then Chadwick was the future, the living proof that Denzel's influence will ripple through time. Denzel Washington's greatness isn't just about the roles he's played or the awards he's won. It's about the respect he carries and the respect he gives. From Sidney Poitier, the trailblazer who lit the path, to Viola Davis, the powerhouse of raw emotion. From Morgan Freeman, the steady rock of discipline, to Pedro Pascal, the rising star whose work ethic caught his eye. From Samuel L. Jackson, the brother who's walked beside him for decades, to Tom Hanks, the timeless partner who shares his sense of humanity. And finally, to Chadwick Boseman, the legacy he quietly lifted before the world ever knew his name. Each of these actors reveals something about Denzel himself. His admiration shows us what he values most: authenticity, discipline, passion, loyalty, and legacy. Even as one of the greatest to ever do it, he still looks to others for inspiration, proving that true greatness is never about standing alone. It's about learning, respecting, and passing the torch. And maybe that's the biggest takeaway. The reason Denzel Washington remains timeless isn't just because of his talent, but because he understands the power of influence, both giving it and receiving it. Now I want to hear from you. Which of these names surprised you the most? And if you had to choose one actor who inspires you the way these actors inspire Denzel, who would it be? Drop your thoughts in the comments. Let's see who makes your list. If you enjoyed this breakdown, don't forget to hit that like button, share this video with a friend, and subscribe for more untold stories from the legends of Hollywood, because we've got plenty more where this came from.